Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
Today we're covering the anime Magi and the Labyrinth of Magic.
One day, Alibaba meets a mysterious boy named Aladdin, who can summon a mighty blue spirit from a flute and travels across the continent in search of Djinn Metal Vessels. Hoping to harness Aladdin's magical power, Alibaba invites Aladdin to join him on his dungeon capturing expedition, and along the way, and through numerous encounters and farewells, and as you say, meeting lots and lots and lots of people who can do magic, they will come, and slaves, they will come to learn the truth about their destiny.
And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get updates on future podcasts and World of Paws videos.
Yes, and the prequel, Sinbad, starring Matthew Mercer, Levi Ackerman.
Yes. That's like the best part for you. Now for here, we've actually had this show in our Netflix watch list for a while because we had started seeing other shows at the time, and we had never really heard of this anime before. Never anybody talk about it, didn't see it on Twitter or YouTube or anything. It seemed like it was one of those shows that came and went for anime. Like if you read the manga, you're excited to see it, and then after that, that was it.
So we were going through Netflix anime. We saw the thumbnail. It looks interesting. Let's watch a couple of episodes and see if we like it. And from the first episode, we actually were enthralled. So we continued. And yes, one of my biggest joys was hearing Levi Ackerman as Sinbad. But the story itself was very interesting. The characters were varied and layered and developed. And the different arcs were very interesting. And all the different ways they were doing magic and all the different terms and things they were using that you had to listen and learn to made it interesting. And Aladdin is just so adorable. Yeah.
Until he goes.
Aladdin is just so adorable. Not counting fan service, he's adorable.
Yeah, so for here, they did in a way almost like Disney. In fact, they mentioned Disney for a minute, that where they took these stories and put them together in one universe. They got the story of Aladdin, the King of Thieves, 1001 Nights, Alibaba, Sinbad, all of these stories that you've seen in public domain. And you've probably seen Disney adapt one or two of them, of course, with their version of Aladdin. And here they've got them all in the same universe.
And what was really strange is, yes, they're all in the same universe, and they're using the names, but Aladdin wasn't a thief.
Yeah.
And Alibaba didn't encounter any thieves. And then they traveled with Morgiana. And it was just an entirely different story. So maybe they used the names to attract people to watch it.
Yeah, I think that's what I think you're right, because they adapt some of the stories, but it's not like point blank the same stories that when you read them or you see people adapt them. They like take the characters, they take the elements, and it's its own thing.
The only one I would say, because I've seen the original Alibaba, and of course the remakes as well as the Aladdin, none of these stories fit. The only one that was similar was Sinbad.
Okay.
Because Sinbad in the Seven Seas, and he had the Seven Kingdoms. That was reminiscent of watching different incarnations of the Sinbad story, both live action and animated.
Right.
But Alibaba and Aladdin, no, they were not. They didn't resemble the stories at all.
Right.
But I loved what they did with them. The characters and the stories in here. It was very creative.
Right.
Very creative.
They even make a reference to Disney when they have the genie. They call it the Djinn. The Djinn. They're all the Djinns are basically genies of this world. They're all blue.
Well, you have to remember from Supernatural, a genie is a Djinn.
Djinn
is the proper name. So.
Right. And then they were all blue, like the Robin Williams genie.
Right.
They weren't just all different colors. They were all blue. I thought that was hilarious. So, yes, for here, the story kind of broken up into two things, although there are like several arcs that go on, and it looks like it's a different ending from what the manga had. They kind of have two stories going on. You have the first story, which introduces you to Aladdin, Alibaba, Morgiana and these other characters to explore the world and have adventures. And then the second arc is for more particularly about Aladdin, and then even getting episodes individually about Alibaba and Morgiana when they have their own adventures. It's about him becoming a true Magi and strengthening his powers and I guess fulfilling his destiny type of arc.
Right. And the first episode really piqued your interest because you don't know the characters, of course. And Morgiana, during that time, she's a slave. And it looks like Alibaba, they're trying to capture him to be a slave. And as you said, then he and Aladdin meet in the dungeon.
Right.
And at first you're thinking a dungeon like a prison as you're normally hearing it. But this is a dungeon where they are able to get the djinns, or access to the djinns and different, as you said, vessels and powers. And some of them can become kings. So it's a really interesting concept.
Right. So it's great that they took all these ideas and made it something entirely new. And then, like I said, you have recognizable stories and characters, but they treat it as if it was their own story instead of just copy and pasting the same thing with their own versions of designs and stuff.
And that's the beauty of, as you tell me, public domain. You
right.
can do that. Yeah.
Right. And I like that, as it goes on, you're not thinking, oh, this is like this story, this is like that story. The only time you kind of got that is that at one point they had a kid leading a pirate group, and he had a hook hand, and you knew that was like a combination of Peter Pan and Captain Hook, like into one, with a whole nother background with that too. So it wasn't just copying Neverland or anything.
So I think we need to mention that in this story, in every arc, one of the things that is featured is Magi, and Magi is, I would say, an essence, a magical essence, and a life force.
Think of it like quintessence
that they use. If you watch Voltron, that they use to power their spells and their magic. And the Magi can deplete and has to be renewed. But if you use up all your Magi, or if it drains out and you don't get to replenish it, or you just use it all in one fell swoop, then you die.
Right.
And one of the things, arcs in this story is how many of the evil magic bearers, I should say, that's the only way I can put it, are attempting to get Magi from other, I say magicians, that's all you can call them. And then in this particular universe, there's 5 major Magi, and they know who 4 are, but they don't know the 5th, and we find out that the 5th one is Aladdin.
Right.
And he's very unassuming because he's this little kid, and they never tell you his age. He looks like he's maybe 5 or 7, but you learn in antics of fan service that there's no way this kid is 5 or 7 years old.
Right, because
he's got to be a teenager. He just looks like Honey Senpai on
right.
High School Host Club.
Yes, because it got about many times like, how old are you again with what you're doing?
And then Aladdin, he grows up thinking that he is a commoner, and he grows up in the poor areas of this universe, and then he comes to find out that he's actually Prince Alibaba Fallujah. And there's many arcs going on with the kingdom, and him and trying to usher in peace between the different continents. I think that's what they kept calling it.
Yeah, because if you think about it, it was a pretty big, expansive world. It was almost like a Pangea type of world building.
And then they meet Morgiana, and again, as we mentioned, she was a slave at the time, from this group of red-headed peoples that are known from having great physical prowess. They're very powerful, especially in their legs, and they can do feats of incredible strength, including leaping to great heights and certain things. And she becomes friends with Alibaba and Aladdin because Alibaba frees her from her captor. That's the best way to put it. And then she ends up traveling with them through these different adventures. And Alibaba and Aladdin become friends by the second episode, they're friends.
Right.
And it's a wonderful friendship. And as they mentioned, they meet, they separate, they meet, they separate. But through it all, they remain friends. No matter what happens, they remain friends. Even when evil attempts to take over Alibaba, Aladdin never loses confidence or hope or faith in him being good. And the Magi can be, I guess you can say, good Magi, which burns like a yellow bright light, or evil Magi, which is black. And the Magi looks like the butterflies from Miraculous.
Right. which we kind of pointed out so much in there is it's the Kuma.
Yeah. And you would know which type they have when they get ready to use powerful spells. You would see the Magi butterflies expanding. And the thing is, people who were gifted could also see the Magi in the air. Now, the regular people generally couldn't see it unless it was black. No, they couldn't see it, especially when it was black, because the black would spread without people knowing it unless they had a gift to see it.
Right.
And the black Magi was responsible for causing chaos and unrest all over the world, and they didn't want anything to turn out to be in a state of peace. They would just wanted a reoccurring war constantly, and it had been this way for centuries.
Right.
So it was a real interesting story. And again, as I mentioned, the characters were very well developed, and you learned so much about them, and you understood how they came to be the characters that they were, or they were, and you could see the growth and development. You could even see literally their growth in height.
Right. Which they do point out a little bit. They say, hey, no, I look different. Yeah, your hair got longer. You're like, no, I've also gotten taller.
And now we have to mention Sinbad. The first appearance of Sinbad, voiced by Matthew Mercer, is Sinbad gets robbed, and he turns up naked, covering his privates. And they're like, oh my gosh, and he tells them he's a prince, and they think he's a liar, and he's trying to rob them or do something. And then they get to his kingdom, and people greet him, and they see where he lives, and they're going, King Sinbad, you're okay, we were. And they're like, oh my gosh, he wasn't lying, he really is a king.
Right, like, what?
And one thing about Sinbad's character is that no matter what happens, he remains calm. No matter what is going on, no matter how bad things get, somehow he maintains this level-headedness, and he's always working to, like Aladdin, they have the same desire for there to be peace, and he asks the different kingdoms to join him, and he's taken over other kingdoms for the purposes of joining them in peace. So it's going to be interesting when we get to watch the prequel of Sinbad, to see in 12 episodes how he grew to be the man he became and the king he became, because he's unlike any king we've seen in any other series, which is an interesting take on this. He's just always level-headed, always calm, and in here he's a philanderer, except for one time he's accused, and he says, no, this time I really didn't do it.
Right? Now the whole episode thing that you'll really get a laugh out of.
So,
wait, there is one more thing I mentioned, is that you don't know if you could read the stories, or you can see the Disney movies if they adapt them. But the one thing, you won't really know who's good and who's evil until the story progresses. Because there's one point in there where they have a Jafar, who's Sinbad's, I guess, sort of like a babysitter or advisor or something.
He's an advisor, and he also can will magic as well.
Right.
He has a metal vessel.
And we thought he was going to be a bad guy, or he's going to try to take over the kingdom or something.
And you were waiting for it?
Right.
Waiting for it?
Because of how the westernized version was always a bad guy. When it never happened. We can say that for sure. It never happens in the show. He actually is good the whole time. We kind of was expecting him to just turn or something, and it never happened.
And there were some characters that we thought were good that ended up being evil.
Right.
So it's very interesting, very engaging, very exciting, and lastly, I have to say, it's very beautifully animated. The colors are just beautiful and lush, and the sets that they've drawn are extravagant. and the characters are beautifully drawn, and they have all these wonderful colors of hair and eyes and skin, and it's amazing how when they are magic users, they look their normal way, but then when they use their metal vessel or their household vessel, they turn into these different extravagant characters. Their hair usually turns white and their eyes turn gray or blue, and some of them, and their wardrobe always changes.
Right.
So it's fascinating and fantastic to watch and beautifully animated, and you'll absolutely love it. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix, seasons 1 and 2, and also the prequel Sinbad, which we will also cover once we watch it.
Right.
So if you have seen this wonderful, wonderful anime, let us know what you think in the comments below.
Right. And be sure to like, subscribe, and click notification bell to get updates on future podcasts and World of Paws videos.
And if you're a fan of Attack on Titan like we are, and if you love Levi Ackerman like I do, this is an opportunity for you to hear Levi Ackerman's voice coming out of Sinbad the Sailor's mouth. It's a wonderful experience.
So, thank you so much for watching. I'm Ask Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.
Flashing lights, trying to walk around, man, who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. Hit her in my dreams, she was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket, give it to you.